Morning, everyone.
Kia ora, Ollie.
Are you Donny?
Seems to be missing in action.
Not a bad agenda for this 118.
Yeah, it should be a quick day, hopefully.
Why have you said it?
Text it right there. Text it right there.
We go till
Easy
8
off
o'clock.
until-
Every
Aye.
vote will be unanimous. You know, straight through.
Keep going, keep going.
No questions.
I'll see you guys at 9:30.
Morning, Tyler.
Kia ora, Dave. How you going today?
All right. Yourself?
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah. With the run sheet, you'll need to remind me because occasionally, because I don't have a screen with that on. I've got two other screens. I haven't got a third screen to put that on. My printer hasn't been working for yonks.
No problem.
Yeah, but I don't think there's anything out of the ordinary in terms of the agenda order, is there?
The only thing would be in terms of the general manager's report, just taking the IAF stuff first.
Right.
Within that report.
Give me an electronic nudge just before that.
Will do.
And
just a reminder that Kesh has partial apologies.
Yeah. I was going to mention that to you, so that's good.
Perfect.
I haven't received any others.
None at this stage.
No. Okay. Ollie, that's a flash place you're at. Where's that? The Aussie High Commission?
That was our headquarters in Kabul.
Okay.
Australian New Zealand headquarters and the main headquarters in Kabul.
Okay. I think there might be different people standing up on that deck up top nowadays.
Yeah, there will be. They'll probably find all our secret little stash places we had up there. We had an internal access point, so we could, the MPs came around, we could lock the door and clear any stuff before they came up and did their search. Yeah, little smugglers' hiding places. Yeah, it was good.
Very good.
Kia ora, Max.
Kia ora, how are you?
Good, thank you. Hey, you used to work with my cousin, July. She's passed on her regards. I saw her a couple of weeks ago.
Wacko, yeah. She's in Rotorua, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, good one. Yeah, NZEI, they've got a lot of really good mahi to take on, actually.
Yeah.
And in particularly tough times, actually, schools, I think, are finding it really hard, to pass on those mandates, to be able to make sure that children are safe and that, their education needs are being met. And, especially lockdown situations with Auckland and Hamilton, Waikato.
Okay, councillors, kia ora. We're going to start this meeting now. It's 9:31. Welcome, everyone. Firstly, we're going to go to apologies, which we have a partial one from Councillor Kesh for, I'm not sure whether she's here at the moment, but for partial attendance as much as she can due to childcare arrangements that she's needing to make on the go, on the run, as it were. Are there any other apologies? If not, I'll move that they be received. Seconded by Councillor Maxine, who I can see in my screen here. Those in favour, against, they raise their hands. Against, that's carried unanimously, I hope. Councillors, will move on to the confirmation of the agenda. Noting that in the General Manager's report, we're going to take the Infrastructure Acceleration Fund section of that first, because there will be discussion on that part of it, and we do have a staff presentation as well to go with that. I'll talk more about that later. But apart from that, that's all, Tyler, that we... Okay, I'll move that the agenda be accepted, seconded by Councillor Ryan. I hope Councillor Ryan's on because I can't see him at the moment.
Loud and proud.
My loyal deputy, there he is. He's had a haircut or something recently too. Excellent. Okay, those in favour raise their hands. Against, that's carried. Thanks. Councillors, will move on to the confirmation of the agenda of the minutes from the 7th of September. I'll move, seconded by Councillor Ryan. Are there any issues arising from that councillors have or that anyone's aware of? If not, I'll move that they be accepted as a true and correct record of the meeting. Those in favour raise their hands. Against, that's carried. Okay, by the way, there's no public forum this morning either, so we're straight on to the chair's report. Just briefly say, councillors, as I mentioned before, we do have, as you're aware, a first cut result, if you like, from the Infrastructure Acceleration Fund, the Housing Acceleration Fund. I see it seems to be a little bit interchangeable, those names. Some people refer to it by one and some by the other. Perhaps staff could enlighten us when we come to that, but rather than discussing that now, I'm suggesting that we wait until we get a report from Greg and Blair at the start of the General Manager's report, and we'll be able to have a full discussion on that item at that time. Regarding Southern Links, I've suggested who might be a member of that working group, and I've been approached by the Deputy Mayor, who I'm very glad to add to that list as well. And it's not meant to be exclusive. So the recommendation will certainly include Deputy Mayor Jeff Taylor in that, and noting that the Mayor would be able to attend and be part of it ex officio anyway. So if there's any other interest, we can certainly add people to that. We weren't particularly looking for a cast of thousands, but anyone willing to put their shoulders to the wheel will be good in that area.
Yeah, Dave, I'll be happy to join for a Māngai voice.
Oh, fantastic, Ollie. Thank you. I was hoping someone would self-nominate that, so I haven't gone around, sorry.
And I'll
So,
talk
sorry, Martin.
I'll talk to Sarah re an environmental presence, but that may just be in a participatory. I don't want to grow this bigger than it should be, but obviously there is important in terms of the dynamic environment dynamic there.
Surely, Mr. Chair, that should be the chair of the Environment Committee, because he brings his own unique set of skills and expertise.
Well, it can be the chair of. I'll sort that out later.
Well,
thank you, Ewan.
Yeah. We're happy to make that non-exclusive. We may list names, but we will let councillors know when that working group is taking place, councillors and Māngai, so that if other people wish to attend for all or part of any of those discussions, that won't be a problem. We've first got to scope out what exactly we're going to do, so that'll we want to get some, basically the issue there is we want to get some movement on that rather than it being sort of an also ran project or program every time Waka Kotahi's funding gets announced.
Mr. Chair, I noticed Sarah.
Sorry, I've got Sarah. Hang on, Councillor Martin, put your hand up if you want to speak, because we've got an order here. I've got Councillor Sarah, then Mayor Paula.
Thanks, Dave. In terms of this working group and promoting Southern Links, is it correct that the mass transit plan will be providing more information on the role of Southern Links and the appropriate timing for it within, the next few weeks or couple of months?
It certainly has a mass transit route coming through the Southern Links area. So in that sense, it will, Sarah. I don't know that it's going to be addressing the timing. I think that is not something that I've seen coming up in the lift, but it easily could be discussed. That's my understanding of it. Blair, are you there? Do you want to comment on that?
I think, yes, I am here, Councillor Dave and Councillor Sarah. I think it could cover all of those matters. I mean, I think it's a reasonably broad focus. I think it's around obviously both the timing, the scope, but equally the interrelation between Southern Links and the wider precinct as well.
Do you think in terms of the fact that Waka Kotahi is re-looking at the scope of the project, and particularly in light of the emissions reduction plan that's just been released, are we being premature in saying setting up a working group to promote the project?
I don't think so. It's been on the table for a long time, and it's always had the possibility of public transport routes, now that the mass transit route is being specifically looked at from the southwest, from Te Awamutu and the airport area, potentially through Peacock, that part of Southern Links, plus the rail link to the airport has for some years, maybe 4 years, been part of the suite of things that would come out of Southern Links as far as the council is concerned. That's important that we drive that rather than Waka Kotahi.
I mean, looking at the motion, it seems it doesn't really reference that. I'm wondering whether then it should be referencing the scoping of that project, because at the moment it just talks about promotion.
Yeah, but equally, Southern Links is not just a road. It's never just been a road. It's also been a settlement pattern issue. In fact, more that than a road itself. I think you're getting into. Personally, think you're getting into too much detail there. I think that's going to be the job of the group to decide what exactly it feels should be promoted, and obviously report back to this committee / council. It's not meant to exclude any of that, and environmental issues, for instance, biodiversity issues, for instance, have been a big part of the Peacock section of Southern Link anyway, and obviously would need to continue to be that. I'm not sure what you're specifically wanting to change.
She would like to make it a cycleway, Chair.
It says to progress Southern Links, doesn't say to promote. So I think, there are cycleways already included in the Peacock part of the plan, and I noted SL1 too, some green paths and cycleways are quite a big part of that western side of Southern Links area as well. So I don't think, Councillor Sarah, that it excludes anything that you've raised.
I'm happy to be part of the working group, although I will talk and debate around my views on the overall approach. Thanks, Dave.
Sure. Well, would you like to be added to the group, or did you want to sort out with Martin, one of you, or?
Yeah, we can note one of,
No,
there will be a representative.
Martin, just wait, please. Your turn will come. Put your hand up.
I'm happy for it to be a representative from the Environment Committee. So,
okay. Well, we can. Tyler, are you noting these additions as we go? Tyler?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Okay. And look, the final thing is, sorry, Paula, you were wanting to speak on that. Sorry. Mayor Paula? No. Okay, Paula's had to go. I know she's got some media appointments morning. Martin, you're up there. Please note that yellow hand is available to all councillors, and it's the best way to get on the speaking order because I can see the order they come up.
Well, that's thank you, and notwithstanding the very kind compliments from Councillor Wilson, Sarah for the working group, for the simple reason, obviously, with her environmental hat, but also being the deputy of the infrastructure committee. So I think there's quite a good portfolio synergy there, and I certainly might pop in and sit in. That's cool. Any councillor can do that, but if we can add Sarah to that, that'd be great.
Okay, well, I think that's taken as a specific nomination, Paula. So Tyler. So we'll change that from a member of the representative of the Environment Committee to specifically Councillor Sarah. Noting that point by Martin. Okay, there's no other hands up. Just the other thing about the growth areas workshop. I really hope at the end of the meeting that everyone's able to stay for that. we wanted to make sure that some of those, I call them blue measles areas, all the blue dots around the edge of the city that are being proposed for future development, that we have developers beating a path to our doors on, that there's actually some knowledge in council wider than perhaps just myself and Councillor Ryan and the staff involved, that all councillors have the opportunity to find out what these developments potentially could be about, and have a chance to ask questions direct of the developers, like we've done on some of the other areas in the past. And this is the opportunity. We're going to try and work through 3 or 4 of these this year, and then perhaps some more early next year, so there's better visibility of them. So are there any more questions? Sorry, I'm just looking at, I don't have any listed there. So I'm going to
Yes,
move.
yeah, Dave. I
Sorry,
do.
Sarah.
No, yeah, I just put one up. The motion does say relating to the promotion of Southern Links. I would feel more comfortable if it was something more neutral, given that we don't have information from the mass transit plan, etc. So whether it's just matters relating to Southern Links or
I'll change. Sorry, though, I'll change it to the words in the actual report progress of Southern Links. Yeah, I think that's more generic. Not that I have a problem with promotion.
Mr. Chair, just from a procedural point of view, I will move an amendment, which is your original motion. If I can have a seconder, I think.
Look, let's. I don't think this needs to be an issue of division or difference of opinion. I'm
happy to see.
Yeah, look, put up your hands on a speaking order. I'm suggesting the word progress covers promotion, covers the wider issues, so is more generic. It's not less exclusive. That's the reason, and I note, Councillor Ewan, that the report above actually talked about progress, so that was probably my error to have 2 different words there. That's all. Pretty low key sort of thing. So I'm hoping that we don't, it's up to you, of course, but I'm hoping that we don't see that we can be totally inclusive there, rather than try and exclude any aspects of it that might come up. But I will change the word to progress in light of my report above.
Understood. So I respectfully hear what you've said, and I will be comfortable with the democratic process. I would like to move an amendment, which is your original motion.
Oh, okay, hang on. I'll let you get a seconder on that in a sec. I'll just get a seconder first, and then I'll come back to you, Ewan.
Sure.
So, Sarah, I'm taking it you're just going to second the recommendation with the word progress rather than promotion?
Yeah, I can second that.
Okay. Ewan, have you got a seconder for the word promotion? Was that what you were going to say, Jeff?
Yes, I think the Deputy Mayor will second it for me.
Okay. All right. Well, that's clear. That's the motion. Firstly, I'm going to do this in 2 parts. Firstly, I'll move that the report be received, seconded by Councillor Ryan, just A alone. Those in favour raise their hands. Against, it's carried. And secondly, we'll go on to part B. The motion in front of you is the wording you see there with the word progress instead of promotion. There's an amendment from Councillor Ewan to take it back to the wording that you see in front of you, seconded by Deputy Mayor Jeff. So I'm going to speak briefly to it. I'm not going to speak to the wording because personally, I don't care what wording comes out at the end. What I think we need to be doing is taking charge of the Southern Links debate and discussion again, to make sure that it does progress and that all aspects of it that the council think are important are promoted. So I see both as being part of the job here. I think we've dropped the ball a little bit on Southern Links. We did a lot of work on it about 6 or 7 years ago, got it high on the list, both within the region and nationally. It started being funded in terms of scoping and land purchase by NZTA/Waka Kotahi some time ago, and then the shutters came up and nothing much happened. We were told by Waka Kotahi last meeting that the majority of land had been purchased, which proved not to be the case. Only about half of it's been purchased in that area. We're aware that the lack of decision about Southern Links is holding up growth and settlement patterns in the south and southwest of the city. We're aware that coming up in the lift, we will have a mass transit corridor to determine what alignment that takes, the issues of a rail connection to the airport, of cycle links that go south of Peacock and what they connect with. A whole lot of issues like that are being held up. We also, in the back of my mind, is that we don't want all the growth of the city to be to the north and northeast. We want the city to be as balanced as possible. Southern Links, which sort of encompasses the southern end, I guess, of Peacock and the western end, is an important part of that balancing of the city, in my opinion. And clearly it's not being supported much by other councils or by Waka Kotahi enough, in my opinion, apart from Waipa Council, who have indicated support for it. The rest of them are more concerned, to be honest, with cattle underpasses and rural intersections, which is fine from their point of view, but it doesn't help with the development of the metrospatial plan area, the central Waikato, in my opinion. That's what all of those reasons are why I think we have to start taking charge of this program again. So that's me. I'll ask the the mover of the amendment to go next, and then I'll open it to the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Dave. Look, I agree with every sentence that you stated, with the exception of the preamble that you felt that there is no difference between to progress it versus to promote it. And I feel, for the very reasons you've articulated, the importance of Southern Links, this council has historically, and in my opinion should, going forward, promote the importance of the Southern Links in its entirety. And I am fearful, that we've heard from a member of council who has moved to change your motion in your chair's report based on ideology, that there is that she is fundamentally wanting to re-debate whether or not in this particular time and place that we should have the Southern Links road infrastructure and what that brings. And let's just focus on what that does bring. For decades, this city has realized that to be fully functioning, it needed significant and ongoing enabling routes towards the airport and heading south. It needed to be able to connect the balanced growth requirements, as you've articulated. The city has historically grown to the north. We've always said moving forward that it needed to grow in a balanced way that included to the south. We have this incredible asset of a rail link that heads past our airport, an airport that should be used more for freight and I hope again internationally for passengers and freight. The amendment simply says and reinstates a narrative that this council has had for decades, that Southern Links is an absolutely essential part of the city's growth strategy. that this is not a time to walk away from wanting this infrastructure. It's a time to say we want to promote it, we want to advocate for it, we desperately need it, and I think any tinkering with the word devalues the original motion that you had in what was a very good report. So I'm focusing on this one word because I think it's really important. Either way, Councillor Chair Dave, you have my full support, and I will be a vocal champion. And I will work passionately to get Southern Links in play, and I will work against anyone who tries to tinker it and remove it from the strategy of growth for this city.
Thanks, Ewan. I have Councillor Sarah now.
Thank you, Chair Dave. The reason why I preferred the wording progression rather than promotion is that we don't actually have anything clear to promote at this stage. We know that Waka Kotahi is rescoping this project in light of climate change, in light of the emissions reduction plan. And we also have the mass transit plan work underway, which is looking at land use, which is looking at the role that Southern Links and transport in this area will play. And we're putting the cart before the horse in many ways in terms of assuming that the form of the Southern Links should stay the same as it has been for well over a decade. And when the Southern Links was originally scoped out, climate change barely got a mention. And so times have changed, and we need to make decisions in light of that. For that reason, I would like to see us take to work with Waka Kotahi on this to make sure that the project is actually fit for purpose, that it actually fits with climate change targets. The emissions reduction plan requires us to reduce transport emissions by 41% by 2035. That is a huge cut in emissions over just 14 years. It also has in there a target to reduce vehicle kilometres travelled by 20% by 2035 in order to be able to reach that target. So we need to be making sure that Southern Links is appropriate for the future, that it is future-proofed, and that it's based on recommendations in things like the MAPS transit plan. And we need to not be making decisions based in a vacuum anymore. I think it's interesting that the word ideology is always brought up when it comes to talking about these issues. It seems like a convenient way to dismiss actual real debate. This is based on science. We have a climate change commission that we set up as a country to create these targets. And now we need to be making sure that our decisions are aligned with those targets. That is why I would like to see us taking a more nuanced approach to this. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Deputy Mayor Jeff, please.
Thank you, Chair Dave, and I just commend you, Dave, for your consistent advocacy for Southern Links year after year, and for taking the proactive move of setting this group up through your chair's report, and for allowing me to join the group. The progression of Southern Links is something that's really been important to me personally since before I joined the council in 2016. It's integral to Peacocks, to development of the southern part of Hamilton, but also economically for the city. It's just essential for a whole lot of areas, including freight, transportation of freight. And however Southern Links is rescoped, it's always going to need to be a road as well. Anything less is just unrealistic. Southern Links is an absolutely vital platform in our growth strategy in the city. So, and I'm supporting Councillor Ewan's amendment because I cannot see why anyone would have any issue with promotion of Southern Links, given the long battle that we've had to get this thing any traction over the years. It's been on our books for a long time. and we just need to be loud and proud and tenacious in advocating for it. Let's not get bogged down in mode shift arguments and let that affect our advocacy for it. We need to be fighting for this project for our city. So I wholeheartedly support the amendment and look forward to being part of this group. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. I've got Councillor Rob now. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Dave, for your consistent work on this. As Deputy Mayor Jeff has already aligned to, I too can remember 5 or 6 years ago when we were very close to having it near the top of the list, and then it fell away. I think we've got past the promotion. I think we're getting into the progression now, but I still think the missing partner around the table to get that progress is the interest and participation of Waka Kotahi. It is going to be their road, it's their development, and they are the mainstays in terms of getting the government funding rather than council on its own. So I think the progress seeking to be achieved here is making sure that we don't go any further with this working group unless we have a commitment that Waka Kotahi want to get around the table and partner with us on getting the funding and the work underway. You know, the government's already given us significant support to develop Peacock with the HIF funding, and it just seems to me now that this could be a lost opportunity to further develop that area while we develop the residential part of Peacock and have the all-important roading links, not only citywide, but also to provide access to and from the Peacock subdivision, which I think over the next 20 to 30 years is going to be another Rototuna in terms of where Rototuna is now and the size of it for residential development. So, before this comes back to council for the final tick off, I would like to get a commitment from Waka Kotahi that they want to sit around the table with us and partner this rather than us needing to promote it further with them first. Thanks.
Thanks, Rob. Councillor Ryan.
Thanks, Chair. Look, largely agree with, I think, virtually something from everyone. I would just disagree with one point of Rob's, which is that we need to Waka Kotahi at the table to advance this. I say we advance this irrespective of where they're at. This needs such a multi-stakeholder approach, similar to what we've got with the Metro Spatial Plan, where we have multiple councils involved, multiple agencies, Te Waka, political proponents, and at some point Te Waka will be forced to join. So I'm a little bit relaxed whether they're at the table initially. I think we've got to go ahead with this and champion this project significantly. And I'd suggest that be one of the first things we scope out in our first meeting is who needs to be at the table. And we advance the acquisition of land and those sorts of things. And we actually have a roadmap for when we can achieve this and how we might then be able to fast track it with our leverage points and advocacy, etc. As being said, this is more than just a road. Obviously, it's a complete transport corridor. It's an economic enabler. The growth of our airport is a significant strategic and economic opportunity we've got in our backyard that is completely dependent upon this transport network. Obviously, Ruakura just across needs this. It's going to be a major logistical port. It all starts to make sense. So I think personally I could have an amendment that says progresses and promotes, because I think they're a dual strategy. We need to do both. So I'm happy with where it lands today, but I'll be starting with the amendment. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Mayor Paula, please.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry about that. That was a call from Wellington I had to take. Sorry for dropping out. I would have asked a couple of questions. So I'm not entirely clear on the differences between the amendment and the motion, but I just want to speak up in terms of a working party. I would have considered that there's always, with growth, infrastructure and infrastructure that then gets taken over, there's always an overlap with Councillor O'Leary's committee in terms of roading infrastructure, and whatever else goes around it will be in her portfolio once it's built. And so there's that little bit of a grey line, and I would have, I'm not sure if she was suggested for the working party, but I would have thought that could have added some value. Definitely agree with my colleagues here about the value that Southern Links provides us. It's completely woven into our Hamilton Metro Spatial Plan, our future-proof plans with the other councils. And we know we've been working really hard around considering boundaryless approaches to planning to join up and get greater synergies, and this road is pivotal to that. And you know, things like when we go to future-proof next and secure co-funding with our neighbours for a southern wastewater plant, for example, all of that's contingent on having a formed transport network. Picking up on some of the comments that Sarah made, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with her that this can't look like any other link road we've put in the past. This has to reflect modern transportation and multimodal modal ways of getting around. We have a unique opportunity in Peacock. It's a beautiful piece of green space at the moment. It's going to be developed into multiple beautiful subdivisions. We have the opportunity to put the best design of cycleways, walkways, and other ways of getting around, public transport and other ways of getting around. If we don't do it when we build fresh, then we have to retrofit, and we all understand how difficult retrofitting is. We've seen that time and again. So let's get this one right. But it is an exciting opportunity for the southern end of Hamilton, which I guarantee in 10 years' time will not look anything like it currently looks. So, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Paula. Councillor Martin, please.
Yeah, thank you. I only have 3 minutes. This is Rip Van Winkle time for me. Both Councillor Ewan Wilson and Sarah have inspired me to sit in on this committee because we have a really welcoming open door policy. We sit around the table. I'm delighted with the people who sit around the table. And as I pointed out, I think Sarah, in her case, brings both infrastructure and environment. But obviously, I think that's really good. Certainly, point about Angela's contribution is noted. Look, you know, this is Rip Van Winkle. Why? Ironically, I was one of the strong advocates for the expressway link between Auckland and Hamilton as a local councillor, deputy mayor, MP. I will claim credit for being part of that team. I will claim credit for being part of a big team with regard to the ring road around Hamilton, which resulted from residents' council petitioners. But the issue of those projects don't stop there. Obviously, you don't have a arterial route, you know, without proper sort of cycleways, public transport, integrated transport systems. The point Sarah's making, I believe, is you want living cities. You know, life and times have moved on. There's more stuff that we know about our whole transport infrastructure than we might have realised years ago. So I'm sorry, I'm not being very eloquent in expressing this, but I think this is a really important piece of work. I'm a bit like Ryan, promote and progress. I'm going to define progress as literally getting down to government and banging the table, banging with our MPs. I'm happy to give you advice on that, but not that you need it at all, because this is not just dealing with Waka Tahahi. This is dealing with the government of the day, the Minister of Transport, and playing some hardball to make sure that we get the outcomes that we want. This is a very vital part of the city and region's infrastructure, but it must be based on what we now know around climate change issues, what we now know around livable cities, what we now know around the need for good public transport as well as good arterial and transport networks. Certainly critical in terms of our southern boundary issues. So I'm going to really sit in on this committee as an observer, whatever, but I think you've got a good group of people around the table who will really promote and progress this project, and lots of banging of doors in Wellington still. And like the Deputy Mayor and others, I am frustrated at how long this has taken.
Thank you, Martin. I have no other speakers with their hands up. Just checking, no one's coming through. So just briefly in reply, there's a couple of points I'd like to make. Southern Links, right from the start, has never just been a road. In fact, the road that people are conflating with Southern Links is actually called W2. That's the bypass, if you like, of Glenview, Melville area, and that's out to the west. That's one part of Southern Links. Southern Links is the whole area. It's also the arterial road that connects with Peacock Road and goes through the centre of Peacock. It's the proposed, at this point, mass transit route through the city centre. It's the connection between the city and the airport. It's the opening up of land for residential settlement in the area and industrial areas perhaps around the airport. It's had the addition, since it first started, of a rail link, which has been listed in Future Proof for some time now, verbally. But there's one thing that no one's mentioned. I was surprised that Jeff didn't, because he used to get caught in this every morning when he lived down south. The absolute congested, traffic congested area of Glenview and Melville every morning and evening. And this is meant to take freight and other through traffic out of a local area that's important to the city and important to the city's development down south as well. I don't think, in response to Councillor Ewan, that it's an ideology that Councillor Sarah is talking about. It's talking about what we now know to be the real needs of Hamilton. It's always actually been referring to that, though, and I say this to Councillor Sarah, it's never just been a road. So the only thing I'd like to add probably to all of that is that I'm fearful of this much debate over a single word. I fear that the Deputy Mayor's projection of a 2 p.m. finish might blow out of the water. But it's a very good debate in the sense that we haven't had a discussion on Southern Links properly for some time, and we've started that now, and I hope the working group, whichever word gets through, will actually make sure that we're well aware and the city becomes well aware again of Southern Links and what it means for the city in future. So with that, we're going to move to the vote, and I think Tyler, if it's okay with you, we'll do that by show of by the green tick and red cross under reactions. So firstly, we're going to the amendment, Councillor Ewan and Deputy Mayor Jeff's amendment with the word promotion in there. Those in favour of that, please use the green tick, against the red cross. Ryan, Tyler, you give us the results when you're able to, thanks. Just waiting there.
Sorry, I had difficulty seeing both motions again, so I'm just trying to.
There's only one word difference, Paula. Promotion or progress.
Okay, cool, thank you. All right, hang on, I'm coming at you then. Just find my little reaction button. There we go. Did it.
Have we got all the votes there, Tyler? Any recalcitrants we're waiting on?
The amendment is carried 10-5, noting Mayor Paula, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Pascoe, Councillor Van Oosten, Councillor Gallagher, and Councillor McPherson dissenting.
Is that 5? Okay.
Chair, just a procedural question.
Sorry, we're in the midst of
Apologies, it was 9-6, not 10-5.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is related to the voting though. It's a procedural question.
All right.
Just,
Relate to
I don't know, governance, I don't know if you can hide people's voting things, but if people are delayed to the vote, they see where everyone else has voted, and it's that we wouldn't have that in
Sorry,
the chamber.
Ryan, this is not specific to this motion. This is
What was
a
actually?
generic question. We'll deal with that afterwards. We need to progress this now, or promote it, should I say. The amendment becomes the motion with the word promotion in there. I'll take a board vote again on the reactions. So that is the amendment originally moved by Councillor Wilson and Deputy Mayor Taylor. Please tick or cross on that, thanks. And then I'll come back to you, Ryan.
The substantive motion is carried 14-1 with Councillor Thompson dissenting.
Thank you. Okay, Ryan, your point about waiting and then seeing how everyone's voted before you vote isn't, I don't think, and Tyler or Amy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, isn't sort of covered in the standing orders, but it is a good point. We shouldn't have any discussion or any delay in voting for any reason.
Yeah, I apologise. I caused that. I apologise.
Well, no, you're not the first person though, Paula. So it's probably as a matter of course, we just stay silent and get on with it real quick so that we don't have that perceived advantage / disadvantage put in place. I think that's just a commentary, but there isn't any rule, I don't think, Tyler, in the standing orders that covers that.
We're just looking into that now.
Let me know if there is, and we can quote it, but otherwise we better move on. Councillors, thanks for that. We're going to move now to the future-proof update report, which Blair and Hannah are giving, I believe. Hannah, are you there? Yep, she is.
I am. Sorry.
Thanks, Hannah. Are you leading off?
Yes, I am. I'll just fix my screen. Okay, good morning, councillors. This is just a brief report on the draft future-proof strategy. It's noting the consultation period that is now open and when that will be closing. It's also seeking to approve Hamilton City Council's rep on the Future-Proof Hearings Committee and recommendation that be Councillor McPherson. And lastly, there's a brief update on the Metro Spatial Plan Transport business case that is currently underway. So just briefly, as you recall, the Future-Proof strategy, it's been updated to incorporate the H2A corridor plan, Metro Spatial Plan, and the MPSUD. The draft was supported by Strategic Growth Committee on the 7th of September. It was then supported by FPIC on the 16th of September to go out for public consultation. Submissions opened on the 4th of October and they are due to close on the 12th of November. We've got hearings scheduled from the 6th to the 10th of December, followed by deliberations. The final aim is to have the strategy adopted by FPIC in February and then to come back to all of the partners, councils and organisations in March 2022. We're recommending that Councillor McPherson participates in that hearings process. It's going to be a 4-day likely commitment in December, and then they will provide recommendations on any strategy changes back to FPIC. So yeah, that's the gist of the report.
Thanks, Hannah. Councillors, we're opening the floor to questions at the moment. Sorry, I'm just trying to look at my complete list. I've got Councillor Martin, I believe, with the first question. Martin?
No, a comment only when you're ready for comments.
Okay, no, sorry. Yeah, Rob, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Hannah, for the update. Is it proposed that Hamilton City Council will submit on the report? and participate in the hearings as a submitter?
We've had discussions across the partners that our feedback has been largely incorporated or it has been all incorporated as the strategy has progressed through its drafting. We've been closely part of writing that document, and that feedback has been taken on board to date. The discussion is that if submissions were going to be made by the core partners, that those would likely be in support of the strategy in its current form. And I know Waikato Regional Council is intending to make a supportive submission. And other councils, it's my understanding that they are choosing not to put in separate submissions at this stage.
Councillor Rob, sorry, just before you go on, I asked the same question probably a couple of months back, and at that time we were involved in giving feedback on the draft through discussions and workshops we've been having. So we sort of treated that, if you like, as us getting an early bite at making submissions. And there were, I remember, for instance, the issue of the rail link to the airport was one that we got added in a bit more forcefully than it otherwise had been. And there were some other points as well. So we sort of used that opportunity and haven't proposed an additional opportunity. We will get the ability through Future Proof to approve the final or amend the final document as well.
Okay, I guess the area that just concerns me a little bit is our ability to confidently go to our residents and say if we do support this, whether or not we can deliver affordable homes in the city. And I kind of get the feeling as matters as the market changes, and it has changed a lot in the last 6 months, I get a real concern that infill housing is no longer the trump card that will deliver affordable housing in the city. I just have that concern that even with NPSUD, that we will have that ability to do that in the medium term, in terms of whatever support we've given for this document.
Hannah, could I ask, following that good point of Rob's there, is what opportunity will we have for further input between now and the final adoption of the plan as a partner council?
Yeah, I guess there's kind of a partner understanding that we've had quite a few bites at the cherry during the development of this. So any kind of further changes, I'd recommend we go back and talk to the core Future Proof team to make sure that that's a kind of the collective understanding about whether we actually have further opportunities to make those changes, or whether that's through the hearings process and submissions.
Okay, thanks.
Maybe.
Yep.
I was just going to say, sorry, Rob, to just on the process there, it might be worth doing that because there may well be issues. In fact, I can think of a few potentially that would come up in submissions from third parties, which we may want to agree or disagree with, but need to have an opportunity as a council to discuss and then feedback. There may need to be a sort of a halfway house process between the hearings and the final adoption. It gives any of the partners that opportunity to say, hang on, we didn't think about this at the time, or this is something extra we would like included.
Yep.
So Rob, I'm just thinking not on specific points of housing, but the process, we might want to add a point D, note that their partners will be asked by HCC to discuss opportunities for input to the final plan ahead of its adoption.
Yeah, no, I'd be comfortable if we could add that in, Dave. Yeah, that would be good.
Tyler, could you craft something, a point D for the motion to that effect, and we'll have a quick look at it when you're able. Rob, sorry, I've interrupted your questions.
That's okay. I'm nearly finished. I just have one final point, and maybe that Chair Dave can answer this. Matamata Piakau are not part of Future Proof, as I understand it.
They've been invited, and Blair and Hannah may want to talk on this too, invited to be part in respect of the Morrinsville sub area of their council.
Yep.
And that I understand that they've now agreed, but at the point of going to their plan and hearings, they're not. But if you look at, for instance, the transport part of the of future-proof plan, they are now included, which they weren't before.
Okay.
Hannah and Blair, do you want to talk further on that point?
I'll let Blair handle that one. I know the letter has been sent, but
Yes, so I think Councillor Dave and Councillor Rob, there has been meetings between both the chair and the implementation advisor with the Matamata District Council, and also the late Luke O'Dwyer also presented to their council. So they had signified very keen interest to join Future Proof, but they're yet to actually attend or become part of the formal governance committee. So I think that's a work in progress for 2022. Certainly there's a very open invitation for them to come on board, and we can see, as Councillor Davis said, particularly with the Morrinsville community, big advantages for Future Proof to embrace that council. So thank you. Can I just come back to the earlier comment and the addition to the resolution? Hannah and I have been talking about this very point, Councillor Dave, around submission matters that will come through and the ability for us, through both yourself in terms of the hearings panel, but equally anything that then comes through that, how we as a council can have a final view on that. So I think that that's an appropriate request to take back and to look at the early part of 2022. And I note in paragraph 21 of the report, there's a sort of a schedule of dates. What we're really talking about is that sort of February, March period in 2022, which is between Future Proof sort of adopting the final strategy and then the partners adopting the final strategy. So it's just that sequence in there.
Yeah. So as far as you're concerned, Blair, that point D, noting that we'll sort of work up a process to handle that is fine.
Oh, look, I think it's really, really important, and I think Hannah can jump in if she wants as well. But there will be matters that submitters raise, which will be of interest that we will want to have a view on, and obviously, Councillor Dave, in your role as part of the hearings panel, you'll obviously be seeing those firsthand. But some of those you'll potentially want to get all of council to say we support that change or not. So I think it's appropriate.
Yeah, thanks.
Those are my questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Rob. Martin, thank you.
Yeah, a question to you, Mr. Chairperson. As a member of the panel, could you confirm that it would be really advantageous to many elected colleagues to join the hearings via Teams to listen in because of the variety of submissions that will be made on the plan? And I think I think that would be a good idea.
No, look, I can't confirm that, but I could confirm that if it was by Zoom. Teams is dog, but Zoom will be quite good for that purpose.
Yeah. Just a question to Tyler. Can you just talk to Becca? I noticed on the day of the hearings, we have a members' information session. I'm going to humbly suggest that the best information session the members could have on that day would be to perhaps tune into some of those hearings, given the content. This is a really important day, but that's only a view. Sorry, Tyler. Could you confirm that you'll talk to Becca about that?
I can take it as a staff action to look for alternative methods. I can't confirm that I can make the change right now.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I'll save the rest for debate.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Tyler, how are you going with that point D?
I'll have it on screen in about 20 seconds.
Okay. We'll just wait for that. And I'll move the motion. I've got a seconder. Sing out. Councillor Gallagher, thank you. How about notes that prior, so we're not asking the others, we're ensuring that it will happen. Rob, that covers the point you're raising at the process, eh? I'm assuming it does. Okay.
Yes, thanks, Chair Dave. Yes, that does. Thank you.
I've moved this, seconded by Councillor Gallagher. We'll go to discussion. So I'm just looking at my hands up there. Just briefly speak to this. I don't think it's going to be contentious. Sorry, can we leave the resolution up there, Tyler? Sorry.
That's all right.
Look, I don't think it's contentious in the sense that this is part of our sub-regional planning process. It includes the metro spatial plan, the transport story, the green, for instance, the green-blue corridors aspect of the metro spatial plan, the through the region, the H2A links, all those sorts of spatial planning vehicles that we've adopted. It's going to enable us to look at how hugs should be adopted in specific parts around the city and in the city. It's going to advance the issue of boundaryless planning so that we can start planning for things that are currently not within our legal city boundary, but are certainly within our, if you like, sphere of influence. And the residents certainly of those areas regard themselves as already part of Hamilton, perhaps. So it's an important next step in spatial planning. Once we have this, it'll also make it easier to argue for funding from organisations like Wakotahi, from special government funding vehicles that are set up from time to time, and to deal with developers who want to help us grow in certain areas. So all of those things are going to be advanced by having this plan updated, because we already have obviously a current future-proof plan. So I'm very keen on this happening as soon as it can, and support adding that note in, that we have one further opportunity for a council input into the final wording of the plan. Thanks. Sorry, Councillor Martin, I think I can't see your name at the moment, but I think you're on that list.
Yeah, look, I'll speak now because I'm sure there's lots of eloquence. Look, I deliberately sort of made the point about the day of the hearings and panel, and via Zoom or Teams, just some friendly advice. Certainly, I think there's opportunity for councillors to tune in or be in the room and just listen to the submissions. I do pick up Rob's point around, coming back and having a further council discussion. This actually, in view of the previous discussion we had about progress, promotion, whatever, the Southern Links and the southern part of our city, this piece of work, as we all know, is really, really critical. And we're having a workshop straight after this meeting, which actually is related. The point I would make is future-proof and that's the point of these hearings, is not static. It evolves. For example, there's going to be some discussion around presumably the Ruakura East Taunui development in terms of the industrial area. Initially, that was not envisaged. These things are evolving. There's going to be discussion presumably around, the Meremere, Mercer areas, Tikofi, all of these areas. But I think as a base point, this is a very, very crucial document. And dare I say it, in years to come, when you look back on your involvement with the council or whatever, this particular piece of work is going to be crucially important. I will do a shout out to you, Dave. I'll do a shout out to Paula and others who have really been with this particular project right from the beginning. So very, very important piece of work and fundamental to our city.
Thank you, Martin. Are there any other speakers? If not, no, there aren't. I will just ask for a show of hands vote. Those in favour, please raise their hands. Okay, anyone against? It appears to be carried unanimously, Tyler.
Motion is carried unanimously. I'll
Thank
just
you.
use now to provide an update in regards to voting. It is not part of the standing orders that voting has to be anonymous, which is why we can use the show of hands in the chamber. We do understand it's best practice, but unfortunately, due to Zoom limitations, we cannot hide votes at this time.
Okay, thanks for that update. Okay, councillors, we're on to the growth programs update, and either during this or at the end of this, depending how long it takes, we'll have a break for morning tea, no later than the end of this item. So we have Karen and Blair doing that. Karen, you're here somewhere? I saw your name before. Are you going to lead off on this?
Yes, Morena. I'm just checking also for Stafford Hodgson, who's going to provide an update on the Hamilton Urban Growth Strategy review. But I'll just kick things off. So this is our growth programs update, and we usually provide these, and they're just taken as read. We're talking about it today. If there are questions about any of the growth programs reports, so Peacock, Rukurura, Te Central City, etc., then happy to answer those questions. We do have quite a number of people on standby to help us answer the technical questions that we can't answer ourselves. So,
could I just add this? We, as Karen said, we normally just take this as read, but we thought it was an important opportunity to everyone to have a chance to ask some questions that may have been building up for a while. So pleased that we can do it as a normal report.
And I will just highlight a few things as well which have happened since the reports were published as well. So the Amberfield Environment Court decision around for Peacock was released recently, which is quite a significant milestone for the program in Peacock, and it means that now earthworks can get underway late next year, and the houses can start being built ready for 2024. So that's exciting. The other really important milestone for Peacock as well was the notification of the plan change. And other things to note across the growth programs is for Central City, the decision around the IAF bids and things like that. So I will pass on to Stafford Hodgson now. Is he online? Stafford, are you there? All right, okay, Stafford's not here.
It'll have to be a substitute.
Yeah, okay. Oh, here he is. Hello, Stafford.
Karen was getting a bit worried there, Stafford.
Yeah, so could you just provide an update on the HUGS review, Stafford?
Sure, thanks, Karen. So HUGS is progressing, but we've taken a moment to pause to make sure we're really aligned well with the other interrelated programs of work happening at Council. I'm sure you've got lots of visibility that there's a lot going on, the likes of the district plan, Metro Spatial Plan, Transport Program Business Case, and scoping up of other strategies like Access Hamilton. We thought it was really important to ensure that HUGS is progressing in an aligned manner, so you don't get disjointed strategies across Council. To that point, we've spent a lot of time with the district plan team recently to ensure that the decisions that are coming up through the district planning committee on the 4th of November work well with HUGS, and that HUGS can have a really good steer for the direction that that plan change, which is responding to that national policy statement direction, and wind those into the HUGS strategy in a way that enables the best strategic decision-making opportunities for elected members. We want to understand well what is going to be decided through the district plan, and how HUGS can influence how that rolls out over like a spatial time frame perspective. So that's a really key date for me, that November 4th District Plan Committee. And then directly following that, we have the HUGS reference group, where that will be discussed from a HUGS perspective, and the plan for moving forward for HUGS will be, the guidance will be given from that reference group membership on that date. So thanks, elected members. If you have any questions on that, I'll be happy to take them.
Yeah, Pep, Karen, was there any more you want to say, and then we'll go to questions on the whole report?
No, Councillor Dave, I think that's it. But one thing that we have obviously seen right across all of the programs is the pressure that the alert levels are putting on, in particular, the delivery of the infrastructure programs and the long-term impacts of those as well. So we're just keeping a really close eye on that right across the programs.
Thanks. And also I'd like to compliment staff on the really good attachments you've got in there, which, I mean, I'm looking at, for instance, at the Central City map or plan, and all the different little sub parts of that, and quite a good way of putting them in context. And same with the other areas as well. I think there's some really handy stuff that we can use publicly there as well. So thanks for that. I've got questions to start with from Councillor Sarah. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. Karen, I think my first question would be for you around Peacock. And I'm just interested in understanding a bit more around the risks regarding the Waikato Regional Council consents. It talks about a potential additional cost if we need a more onerous solution, I think, for catchment management plan.
Sarah, I'm sorry, and to everyone's question, can you refer to the paragraph
so
number or page?
That's in the Peacock program update and page 33 on diligent.
Thanks.
So thank you, Councillor Sarah Thompson. And I'm not sure who's here today representing the development group in this space, but staff have been working quite closely through with Waikato Regional Council on the integrated catchment management planning work. And this is related to sort of monitoring the requirements that WRC are asking council to do, which we see as being excessive, I guess, to requirements. And so the team is working with WRC quite closely to sort of bridge the gap between expectations between WRC and what we need to deliver to the community. So is anyone here from the development group that can help with that?
Aaron, I noticed that Chris Barton is on the call, so he might be able to assist. Oh, Jackie's here. Jackie's there.
Perfect.
Kia ora koutou. I've just been on the periphery of the issue, so I don't know all of the details, but it relates to rain gardens and the place of rain gardens in the whole treatment train, and our reliance on lot stormwater solutions. So that's an integral part of our stormwater management response, as you well know, around on-lot soakage and treatment. What Regional Council are suggesting is they don't trust in Hamilton City Council's ability to monitor the effectiveness of those on-lot solutions, and therefore are requesting additional treatment within public road reserve that Hamilton City would be responsible for maintaining, in addition to all of the on-lot provisions. There's potentially, enormous cost ramifications if that were to happen. And so the team are just working through what would need to occur to give Waikato Regional Council confidence that we are monitoring and able to ensure that those on-lot stormwater management provisions are effective, and over what time. So Regional Council is suggesting that they would need to see a monitoring program in place and operational for at least 3 years before they would give sign-off on the ICMP. So there are those sorts of things that we're working through with them.
Thanks. Jackie, and just to follow up with that, so if after 3 years of monitoring it was found that they weren't sufficient, those on-lot solutions, then what would happen?
Well, I guess the issue is that development is happening right now. We obviously need a program to ensure that those on-lot solutions are being looked after. That our stormwater team are working through at the moment. We've got a lot of areas already that rely on on-lot stormwater solutions. So I guess the ramifications for us is that potentially the Peacocks development area will need to be investing in public rain gardens, which, as Karen said, are potentially over and above what's needed from an environmental perspective. And the cost of that is, I think, been estimated in the order of $40 million.
Okay, thank you. Do we know when we would potentially have more information around WRC's response?
Yeah, we've got a meeting that's being arranged with their technical team, and Eva-Lisa will be attending sometime in the next week or so. So we should be able to give an update at the next Strategic Growth Committee meeting.
Yeah, okay. And with the move application to move from the HIF to the IF, have we heard any further news around that?
So at the moment, we're just still, whoops, it's my son. We're still
meeting.
So at the moment, we're just still communicating with MB on that. So the discussions are still happening, but nothing further has progressed at this stage.
Okay, thanks, Karen. And I've just got one question regarding the city centre program, Chair Dave. I'm not sure if the right person's online for it, but it was just around, there's a paragraph there around the walking and cycling bridge. And my question is, if we're looking at actually just integrating it into the Eastern Pathways overall business case, because it seems, I think it's problematic that it's standalone at the moment, and it will only hinder it going forward if it's got its own business case rather than being integrated.
So Tilly, did you want to take that question?
Hi, Councillor Sarah. Yeah, unfortunately, I probably don't have all of the information to share and probably answer that one. That would be best answered by Transport. I do understand that there's been some discussions around that, but I think that it would be best for me to actually double check with Transport and get back to you.
Okay, thanks, Tilly.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Councillor Mark 1.
That's me. Yeah, look, my question too was around that that very same paragraph. I was trying to work out to the layman on page 26, the walking and cycling bridge. I was of the understanding that Waka Kotahi had rejected the funding, but I couldn't see that as clear in here, and I'm not sure if there's something I'm missing. Karen, would you or your son like to explain that to me, please? Just that paragraph, what it means?
It might have just been one of the timing in relation to when this report was done.
Yeah, okay.
Mark, right. I could answer that.
Yeah, go on, Sarah.
So the walking and cycling bridge is in the possible categories. You've got approved, then probable. Yeah. Possible kind of means, yeah, we think it's a worthwhile project, but you need to do more work on your business case, etc. But actually there's no money for it. So it's kind of in that if there was money, then it could be funded. Area.
Okay. All right. That's okay. So that's a wee bit
clearer. Funding is very unlikely at the moment unless more comes along.
Okay, cool. And just the third last line, it should be support, not funding port to establish the business case. But that's just a Gary Malletism. And page 47, just a quick update, please, if you could, on R2, about the timing of that potentially coming into Hamilton City Council. As you know, I know we're trying to accelerate that, but do we have any update on that one at this point?
Bunty, if I could say something, Blair may want to as well, or Karen. We've certainly said in the discussions with Waikato District Council that we've sort of implicitly agreed that it'll be sooner than the original plan, which might have been 2041, and we're sort of waiting for more input there. But R2 specifically is going to be the subject of one of these development area workshops in early November.
Right.
It's like the two we're having this afternoon. We're specifically bring the R2 people in then as well, so that's a bit more information. But Karen or Blair, do you want to go further on R2?
I think Councillor Dave, you've summed that up well. They are coming to present to at a workshop on the 3rd of November, and we continue to work with the developers just to understand their intentions and also look for pathways forward. This is also tied into the future-proof strategy as well. Yeah.
Right. So you might not be determined on becoming part of Hamilton to get to really understand what they're doing. Then that's what you're saying.
And I think one thing that's important to note as well is the Hamilton Urban Growth Strategy Review, as well as a really key project that's going to help us understand what that looks like and how to respond to all emerging area requests that are outside the boundary.
Okay, thank you. That's all for me, Dave.
Thanks. Councillor Rob, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks for the report. A question on Central City, and I just wanted to get my head around the DC remissions. When we talk about a 6-storey building, does that include the 1 or 2 underground car park levels?
Hi, Councillor Pesco. It does not.
Does not. Okay. Okay.
Above ground.
Above ground. So it has to be six stories above ground.
Pretty sure. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you. The proposed development at 1010 Victoria Street. Did we eventually define what we regarded as being the CBD? Because my thinking is that 1010 Victoria Street is, to some extent, is outside the central CBD.
Blair, sorry, Rob, which dot on page 29 is that?
Yeah, I've lost the page. Yeah, 1010,
He's
yeah.
on,
There are multiple exciting residential projects.
Page 5.
Sorry, page 20.
Page 25.
Sorry,
25.
page 25, and it's the second bullet point down.
Right, I was trying to look for it on the map as well.
So, Councillor Pesco, one of the things that we're actually working out at the moment, in particular for program delivery purposes, as well as all sorts of other things that are going on, is what is the boundary of the central city and how does it work? And it feels like it's a bit of a moving feast with 800-metre catchments being added and things like that. So it's the intention of these reports is to provide sort of a holistic update of what's happening in the area and in the general area. And what we're also seeing is that residential developments in particularly see a lot around the periphery of the central city, Seven Road and things like that. All of those things contribute to making it a place where people want to be.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I'm pleased that we're still working on that, defining the CBD. Second question is around Peacock. Now that we've got the Amberfield kind of ready to go, are we in a position now to start calculating DCs? And I raise this question because in page 49, paragraphs 49 to 50, in the next report, we give a detailed submission around what the average Rotokowri section DC is. Are we now in a position to be able to start calculating the DCs on the sections at Amberfield and Peacock?
I might hand that one over to Greg Carstens if he is there, but just to clarify your question, is that are you meaning charging DCs for when they put their resource consents in and things like that, or do you mean in relation to the specific the whole development?
Well, yeah, the thinking now is whether we charge them when they get title or whether we pre-charge them doesn't really matter at this stage. But are we, able to send out to that market the expectation of what their DCs are likely to be?
Okay, yeah, that is one for Greg Carstens.
Yeah, sure. I think the first answer is, yep, we have an operative DC policy, which includes peacocks. So you have DCs in there that anyone can see. In terms of advising, so the process is that you require a DC when a consent is granted. Well, in fact, you've got the discretion to require a DC when the consent is granted. So that's the point when the council chooses to formalise a DC. Any time before that, developer can come in and say, okay, if I did this, what would my DC be like, etc. So the team can, quite easily be helpful around what their DC might be. And then, but in terms of crystallising a DC, it's on the granting of a resource consent, a building consent, or service connection, and also council has discretion around whether or not it does that requirement at each point.
Yeah, I understand that, Greg. I'm just wondering, now that the Environment Court decision is essentially giving them that consent now, isn't it?
I'm not, Karen, is that a granted consent now?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So this is back to the funding gap issue that arose several years ago, and the point there was that the consent, the way that the timing of it would mean that council wouldn't collect any DCs for basically any of a bridge and the infrastructure for peacocks. So council made a resolution to recover DCs on the building consent. So I think the short answer would be this is just off the top of my head. I would need to check the details of this consent that's been granted through the Environment Court position, but the position prior to that was that council would require it on building consent, but we'll go back and review it. The main point is here, are we recovering a fair share of the huge investment that's been made in peacocks, and that'll be the thing that we need to make sure of.
Yeah, and look, I'm also hoping that we'll be in a position to give the developers an indication of what the DCs are likely to be, rather than that surprise that they continually tell us about when they, at some later stage, when they may have already done their costings around their sections.
Yeah, that's right. And we always want to give them the best opportunity to do that. There is just a practical limitation that if they're going to get assessed on a future policy that doesn't exist yet, then there's can't give certainty on that.
Yeah, understand that. And last question, Chair, is now that we've been acceleration fund application for Ruakura and Fairfield was unsuccessful, does council have a plan B in terms of delivering the Ruakura Greenfield site and the Fairfield Enderley retrofit?
Rob, I'm wondering if you mind leaving that to when we do the GM's report, the first item being the infrastructure acceleration fund issue, because we have some responses on that, on what other alternative funding streams may be available.
Okay, no, not happy with that. I just noticed that this report does also consider Ruakura. So, but I'm happy to defer that question. Thanks, Chair. Those are my questions. Thanks, staff, for responding.
Thanks. Councillor Martin, please.
Yeah, thank you. Chair Dave, you may rule whether this is the question about, this is to do with the emerging areas, part of the report, and whether or not that probably might sit in the workshop that follows this particular committee meeting. I'm just looking at the out of boundary principles. Sorry, I'm having a problem with the other iPad I'm using. I'm not sure what page. It's under attachment 5, emerging areas program, emerging areas out of boundary principles. And can I say briefly as chair, I like the summary of the totality of the principles are excellent, obviously.
Page 46.
Yeah, 46. So whether this is better to have a deep dive in the following workshop, it seems sort of kind of silent about the current boundaries of the city, and obviously we've got HT1, but where we are sort of moving outside those boundaries, so you have a neighbouring, whether it's Te Kowhai, Ruakura East, whatever, we don't seem to be talking about a key discussion with our partners around whether or not the boundaries should move, whether at the point at which development happens or is going to happen, there should be a sooner rather than later move of the city boundary. I'm not fixed on this. Dave, you could give some guidance.
I think that's a useful question for Stafford or Karen or Blair to address. We've certainly got those strategic discussions going on with Waikato District. We have an agreement for principal agreement, and we're working on the very similar one with Waipa right now. But this principle, this list doesn't specifically refer to that, as you say. So Karen and Stafford.
So just so I understand the question, Councillor Martin, so are you asking how the boundary changes are addressed through these processes, or are you asking...
I mean, just high level, if we were the Dunedin City Council, we would not even be having this discussion, right? Yep. This comes back to the issue which we all know, that we're the 4th largest population centre and the 3rd smallest territorial local authority. Basically, it's addressing the issue of at what point or how do you trigger a discussion around whether a boundary should move. The broad principles, excellent principles, by the way, great compliments to you and your team, fantastic, seem a little bit silent on that, given the work that Dave's alluded to that's happening with our TA bound, our neighbours.
Okay, so Stafford, do you have the answer to that one?
Karen. So I think you've articulated that really well, Martin. There's a few additional points of consideration which I think are really important. And to sort of jump to the end, I think the answer is there's work underway in this space. So there's, as you've said, the out-of-boundary development principles, and there's also the future-proof review ongoing at the moment, which will help guide how we can make decisions in this space. Additionally, Greg Carstens is working on a value capture mechanism as well, and understanding that better. So I think it's a boundary change is a very good opportunity in my mind to enact this value capture mechanism, or potentially to enact a value capture mechanism where land values could be significantly different if you're in or out of the city. So I think my answer is that we don't have a plan to bring it in as yet, but there's work underway to understand the best way that we might be able to address this. And that's through those discussions with the landholders on the periphery of the city. It's through the future-proof strategy update. And it's through better understanding how we can maximise the value for Hamiltonians through value capture mechanisms and ensuring we deliver well-being to the community.
Yeah,
so that may be an additional principle or statement that goes along with those principles at some stage soon. Stafford.
Thanks, Councillor Dave, that's noted.
Dave reminds me that in 1989, we did not politically proactively discuss the boundaries. We left it with respect to the officers. I don't mean that this has not been disrespectful, but this is a Groundhog Day aspect again. And I guess if I could summarise it, this is the Tamahiri 2 discussion, that if we don't address that issue, we will still be the tiny urban authority with a whole lot of Tamahiris on our boundary, if you take my point. And I'm open-minded as long as we get some principles about whether a particular settlement should remain in Waipa or Waikato, or whether logically it should be in Hamilton. If we can sort of summarise that. So, and I know that all I'm trying to say is the work politically through the through the committee that Dave and the mayor's on. I'm just wondering if we could just capture that discussion point. I think
Martin,
it's really
going back to the future-proof hearings and the plan, it may be that we want to make sure, as a result of the hearings deliberations or our subsequent input, the week that Rob got us to include beforehand, that we include some reference to how that happens, at what stage in the out of boundary growth discussions that needs to get locked in.
That would. I'm not fixed, and I'm sorry if I go on and on about this. I mean, for the last 10 years, being on council as a relatively newer councillor, I apologise, but it is. I mean, I think this is a critical crunch point, and trust me, I just make the point. Horatu North. We're not. It's not necessarily saying it has to be in Hamilton, but let's get some fundamental principles.
Blair, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, look, I think what I would say, Councillor Martin, and councillors, we understand these issues very well. They are core to what we're thinking about. And I think this is why the importance of the HUGS review, which we haven't talked a lot about today, for me is critically important. I mean, what we're dealing with is a very dynamic environment at the moment, and I very, very conscious that Stafford's covered a whole range of things. We haven't talked a lot about infrastructure and the substantial impact of infrastructure in terms of our thinking here, and the huge future cost of infrastructure to support not only current growth but future growth. And I'm also mindful that Stuff's running a story now. There's an announcement at lunchtime today on changes to the NPS-UD. There's no detail yet, but the Stuff's alerting us to that. So that's going to be further direction from the government around intensification in the existing parts of the city, which will have implications for growth and our district plan work. So this is a very, very dynamic environment, both in terms of growing the existing parts of the city, greenfield growth and expansion. So, the HUGS project is core to this. It's core to our story. It's core to how we think about this, how we work with our neighbours, how we work with the government, and how we ultimately prioritise where we invest to deliver the future Hamiltons. So I think the team understand the issues. It's a very, very dynamic and changeable period. And as I say, there's an announcement coming lunchtime today, which is going to be further direction from the government into this already dynamic environment.
Thanks, Blair. Councillors, there's no other questions, so I'm going to move that the committee receives the report, seconded by Councillor Ryan. Is there any discussion on that? Paula, sorry, did you have a question? Or do you want to
I kind of did, but it doesn't really matter. I was just, we can go back to this, but in respect to the upcoming announcement, which is probably going to bring some pace to what we're doing. Blair and team, do you feel that we are equipped to deal with any required uptake in pace or direction? Has the strategic work that we've done set us up to get out of the gate fast with any changes that may come through? Notwithstanding we don't know the detail, I get this.
Yeah, look, I think me and Paula, we are in a good position to I guess assess any requests from the government and respond to those. But what I would say is that we all well know that our teams are under incredible pressure already. We also know that any directive that accelerates and requires greater densification at a faster pace will add further challenges to infrastructure. But I think our district plan project and the work we're doing with HUGS puts us in a really good position, me and Paula, to understand what the government's asking and how we respond to that. What I would say is that we're already working at incredible pace. So I'll be interested to see what further pace looks like on top of the pace we're working at now. But I think as a city, we're well positioned to understand this request that's coming.
And potentially it'll have massive ramifications on the timeline and scale of our district plan review.
Yeah, look, currently we're working to the plan review, which is we must notify the changes to the NPS-UD by September next year, which is already an extremely fast and tight time frame. So if there are changes to that, we'll have to assess that. But I think I'd also just foreshadow again the issues that Chris Allen has brought to the table a number of times now. Planning can't operate in the isolation of just infrastructure. And I think infrastructure is becoming the biggest challenge that we need to address in parallel with the planning changes. So we can certainly bring planning changes to the table, but without the infrastructure to support that, we all know that there will be challenges as a result of that. So I think that's part of this, and it's part of the information that we'll bring both to this committee and the district plan committee as we understand these issues more. And I think HUGS is a key part to this, because the HUGS project is about looking at where we prioritise and think about our futures community, both in terms of intensification, central city, greenfield and out of boundary, and how we balance all of those options and ensure we have both residential and employment solutions for the future, as well as all the transport and biodiversity, other considerations. So the HUGS is a critical part to help us bring this all together.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Paula. Ryan, did you have a question?
No, just debate when you're ready.
Okay. What about you, Jeff? Was yours a question or a debate?
Debate.
Okay, thanks. No other questions? Good. All right, so we'll move to debate on the recommendation. And as the mover, I'm going to say really briefly that there's some really good work going on in this area. We are working fast in a planning sense, but the evidence on the ground isn't yet there. And one of my strong feelings is that we need to follow up this excellent work that's being done with some delivery of housing and communities, whether they be in infill areas or in greenfield areas. And that, to me, is one of the urgent tasks of this council, to enable some of those things to get off the ground. Even Amersfield, for instance, in Peacock, which has been proposed to council for maybe 5.5 years now. We don't have the first house, as Karen said, until 2024. In the meantime, people in this city are living in emergency accommodation. Hamilton and the Waikato has got one of the highest proportions of people not in permanent homes. I say homes, not accommodation, in the whole country. We're a major growth area, and we really need to get some runs on the board in this area. So that's what I'm looking for next. Look, I've got Councillor Ryan next, then Jeff, then Mayor Paula.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, look, I guess just flowing on from your comments, I just want to thank staff for this report. It's such a complex beast where you've got top down and bottom up sort of all merging together, government reforms happening at a crazy pace, developer pressure like I assume we've never seen before, infrastructure demand on both greenfield and infill, and just trying to get a position to support development, but in a logical and sequential way. So I just want to acknowledge the work that Blair, you've had to cobble together in the last few years with lots of changes to your team and position. Karen, Greg and Stafford, just tremendous. Hannah pulling it all together. So just, just want to acknowledge the work. It's not easy. And for me, sort of sitting in different engine rooms, I can actually start to see the strands starting to come together now in a way that makes sense. So just want to acknowledge that work and glad to be a part of it. Thank you. Thanks,
Ryan. Deputy Mayor Jeff.
Thanks, Chair Dave. Yeah, look, alongside Ryan, and referring to the complexity that he talked about, I just want to congratulate the staff, because this update, the growth update, just gives a stunning picture of where we're at and what's to come. And I've never seen it put together so cohesively and clearly before. So congratulations to Blair and his team, and Dave and your team. And it's obviously particularly exciting from a point of view of the central city, because I think one of the big wins is being able to see the central city displayed alongside other areas as a cohesive growth area in its own right, and with the kind of detail needed. And I think it's that thinking of the central city as a growth area as a whole that has helped the council, I guess, the staff, to do such amazing work, submit such a decent application to the Infrastructure Accelerator Fund. So yeah, I've never seen the growth strategies so clearly articulated, and I find it really useful, particularly for the emerging areas as well, just because obviously they're competing with each other and buying with each other, and this is just spectacularly done. So we're in a great position, I feel, to take on the NPS urban development. I'm just hoping that today's announcement, which I note is a bipartisan Labor national thing, isn't some wholesale across the whole city approach without taking into account the differences between suburbs. You know, this council's already done a lot of work to try and prioritise areas for high density development. So I would hate to think that suddenly there's going to be some across the whole city blunt tool approach taken, but that hasn't happened yet. So fingers crossed. But yeah, once again, thanks for the fantastic report. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jeff. Mayor Paula.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, just reaffirm what my previous colleagues have said about the amount of work that's gone in by the team at this council to set up for good growth. Now, this has been going on long before I came on this council. So all credit to you for laying and Dave, Chair Dave, for the work that you've done in setting down a strong foundation for growth. So we're ready to respond to any initiatives that come out of government, and also to go to them with firm requests for funding assistance. I know we're going to talk about the IAF and the manager's reports, so I won't do that. But I do want to make the point that critical to this is our ability to fund infrastructure. And we know that there's a significant bow wave of cost coming our way for infrastructure all across New Zealand, but especially in Hamilton and the growth area around it. The fact that we haven't been able to deliver infrastructure is part of the reason that we haven't made as much pace and progress as we would like with affordable housing. But we've addressed this through the growth strategy here. It also actually fundamentally underpins our rates increases. And so, you know, we know, having gone through the long-term plan, just how much of the growth work adds to the pressure of rates. We can't build more houses without more pipes, without more roads, and all the things that are the fundamental building blocks. So I'll probably say some more about that when we get to a discussion on the IAF next. But I do think that our growth plans have been very well received in government. We've said this before, but we've had a number of meetings which have had several different ministers involved in. We've been to Wellington and talked to a number of other ministers, and they understand the work that Hamilton's done. So credit to you also, Blair, and your team. The work you did for the stimulus package has also added great strength to what we do going forward. I am concerned, and I want to flag this, that there'll be a lot of work coming at us under fast pace. And we've got some excellent staff. We don't want to burn them out. We do want to support them to do the work they've got to do. Ryan's got a big job ahead of him chairing the district plan review. And, you know, I think that'll be coming at you at an even faster pace, Ryan. So we need to all get behind that and become an enabling city. But we would also acknowledge that developers have been speaking to us for a long time about streamlining consents and getting ways of moving faster. So this is a perfect moment, perfect synergy. And let's see what comes out in the 1 o'clock announcement to really reshape the future faster. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Councillor Martin, please.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I think the very excellent comprehensive report. Shout out to Blair and Karen and the professionals that are in that team who are doing all this work, and also the combination of the professionals with the political leadership, a la yourself, Councillor Ryan, etc., and Paul and hopefully the whole team. When we come to our annual plan, our budget review, we know that we have some very serious capacity issues, as I understand, in this broader area. And this is where we can't scrimp and save, because this is, dare I say it, using the term back of house, evidence-based data. And what inspires me, and I agree with Deputy Mayor on this, what inspires me around the reports is the holistic view, the holistic approach that you're taking, where you're taking, it's all about building communities. And, so I just, again, want to join with everyone else in saying to my colleagues, we must ensure that this area, the whole planning area of council, this area of council has to be adequately resourced. And as Blair will remind us as GM, there are some significant recruitment and retention issues. So I just make that point, that this is such a crucial piece of our work moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Councillor Mark 1.
Thanks, Dave. One, look, just very, very briefly, and I'll save the guts of this for a later item, but thanks again for a great report. It is well endorsed, and rightfully so, by all the other speakers. I do worry that Fairfield Enderley is not really seen as a growth area, and it kind of seems to sit in this little hole all by itself. And I would like to flag that I'll be pushing for it to become a growth area, or to be considered as that in the future. But I'll talk more about that later. But thanks for the report.
Yeah, it'll definitely come up, which is what I'll say at my right of reply. It'll definitely come up in the next section, Councillor Mark. Councillors, let's move to the vote now. Just show of hands. Thanks. Those in favour, raise their hands. Against, that's carried unanimously, I think, Tyler. Councillors, we'll break for morning break now. It's 11:18. We'll come back at 11:35, if that's okay. And Tyler, could you just stay on for a sec so I can catch up with you? Thanks. Are you there, Tyler? I can only see Bunty's logo. Oh, yeah, Tyler. So just remind me, we're starting next with Lally, are we?
Yes.
Is that
that's correct.
Yeah. Are you able to contact him and give him that?
Greg will go first. Dave?
So we're going to do the IAF. So
Yeah,
what time is Lally?
Lale is only really speaking in regards to the IAF and how the housing fund links into the IAF next stage. So there's not a kind of wide general conversation on regional housing. It's just really regional housing.
Lale was, okay, sorry, I thought Lale was giving a report on the housing plan thing out of the Waikato plan.
Well, look,
on